The Leviathan Expedition update is here and live, bringing space whales to No Man's Sky, or at least in some form. We have lots of news and some patch notes, so let's go through everything that has happened so far. To start things off, we have the 7th expedition called the Leviathan Expedition. This expedition is super interesting. It certainly pulls inspiration from Farscape, as it already appeared to with living ships. In Farscape there are kilometre-long living ships called Leviathans. These are biomechanical ships of somewhat unknown origin. You do find out a fair bit throughout the series, but I'd rather not spoil a great show like that. While the Leviathan Expedition affords the player the opportunity to have one join their travels in the form of a living frigate. Now, I have seen some negative comments regarding it being a frigate, however most players don't actively use their living ships, if they even bothered to get one, and a similar thing would probably happen if they introduce living freighters, so a frigate being something they can make a little overpowered in comparison to others, like they did with the Normandy, making it worth keeping and not negatively impact your play is a great way to introduce something like this in a way that everyone can use. That being said, making a controllable frigate class ship that can be manned by up to 4 players would also be an amazing way to introduce such types. Regardless, the expedition itself follows an abnormal path. This expedition essentially expects you to die during, and with its semi-permadeath function you will be reset, but your save will not be consumed. In this expedition, when you die you are reset back to the save select menu, where your expedition save is waiting, but on loading it, you will be back at the beginning. Inventory cleared, any ships and multi-tools you gained gone. It is the same save as before, but reset to the beginning, even the milestones. The game insinuates that it is reset minus a few specific things, but in my test so far the only thing that wasn't reset were the appearance customizations I set for myself. Personally, I actually really like this. I already play permadeath and survival as normal, and have even been voicing my opinion that the ability to play expeditions in permadeath would be great, though I was never sure how a permadeath only expedition would sit with the masses, and it appears the player base is split on this one. I'm really not sure what's right here, but if it helps, permadeath and survival really aren't that different and are far more accessible than a lot of people are trying to say. The primary differences are that things hit roughly twice as hard. Even at the beginning, a fauna still won't one-shot you. The ground also hits twice as hard, so without a good amount of health and shielding, you will die from not that high of a fall at the beginning. Weather will burn your protection down much faster. This is considerable, but provided you have a terrain manipulator, you can always dig a cave. Mined resources are roughly 40 to 50% of what they would be in normal mode. Slots in your inventory will hold what they used to hold in all modes years ago, which is 250, 500 or 1000 of resource depending on normal, cargo slots or freighter/cargo storage. Products differ a fair bit on the quantities. What this all means is that if you can play normal, you can play perma, and that the extra difficulty is an intended and integral part of this expedition experience. You can no longer ignore all hazards around you, you just need to be aware of your surroundings, pay attention to the locations of whip vines and fly traps. If you see a predator symbol, either whip out the kibble or run. Don't be careless when jetpacking, be aware that dropping from height can seriously hurt you. Always ensure you have batteries and gel packs on you at all times for hazard protection and life support. And finally, inventory management is a thing. Sell what you don't need, you can't keep everything. Another new thing in this expedition is the addition of optional milestones. There are 5 in total, 1 for each phase, and these are optional as they are community based. Just like unlocking new items in the Quicksilver Synthesis bot store, this community progress not only unlocks 5 items in it, but also 5 milestones in the expedition. These milestones reward some fantastic procedural technology items, making the whole expedition easier as time goes on. I feel like this is a really fantastic addition. By adding these, those who are struggling to finish get a bigger helping hand over time, and those who want a sort of self-imposed hard mode, similar to not using spirit summons in Elden Ring or something, can ignore these milestones yet still complete the expedition. One other huge change is that within the Leviathan Expedition, all blueprints for technology as well as purchasable procedural technology is incredibly expensive now. You can still get them, but they will cost you a whole lot. This is also really cool, as it prevents you from becoming overpowered easily, yet still makes it possible for those willing to work for it. This keeps the integrity of the challenge and just shows how much the difficulty itself is part of the intended experience here. Personally, I would thoroughly enjoy these price changes being made to the standard survival and permadeath, though I'm sure many would disagree. Of course, there are other ways to obtain these blueprints and procedural upgrades than simply purchasing them, so you are by no means prevented from gearing up. As usual, for those in a rush or just having a little trouble completing the expedition, I will be releasing a full, highly efficient step-by-step guide for the Leviathan Expedition. So keep an eye out, I'll release it as soon as I can, but a lot goes into those, so it will likely take a good few days. For the rewards from this 7th expedition, they are actually pretty fantastic. There are 3 new posters, the usual decal and banner for this expo, there's a title, Looper, a very cool Whale Stalker cloak appearance modification, a base building blueprint for a mini Leviathan. This works like the little floating robot companion base items, just as a mini Leviathan, and the grand prize, the huge Leviathan living frigate. As you can expect from expeditions, earning these rewards from the expedition makes them available to every save you have on that account and every save you will ever make on that account. You can access these rewards on your other saves by visiting the Quicksilver Synthesis bot on the anomaly and selecting expedition rewards. Next are some fixes and improvements added with this expedition update. This is essentially a bug fix patch attached to the expedition to address some issues. PvP will default to off during this expedition. This is a fantastic change. I would personally prefer that the setting on my last played save be used just generally for starting a new save, as those are likely to be my preferred settings, but having PvP off by default is certainly a must on a permadeath expedition. Fixed an issue that could cause doors to fail to open on derelict freighters if several slime pieces were destroyed at the same time. This was a fairly wide-ranging issue. Lava Lamp brought it to me when it first popped up, and judging from the wording of this, it never happened to me as I use a pulse spitter and not the scatter blaster. As the scatter blaster fires many projectiles per shot, it can simultaneously hit multiple things. Fixed a number of issues that could occur when joining players from the friends list page. Fixed an issue that could cause settlement charts to fail to find a settlement, yet still be consumed. This was rather annoying, especially considering how expensive they are, being 5 navigation data compared to others. Fixed a number of significant visual issues with wire placement. Fixed an issue that could cause a small number of X-class procedural upgrades to have unexpectedly low stats. I do not yet know the extent of this note. It could be quite a fantastic change. This could be measured somewhat by whether just the mentioned affected low stat modules were changed, or whether all X-class modules have had their stats reshuffled, which is what would happen if the curves themselves have been adjusted. Solar class starships now display their sails on the inventory page. A much requested and fantastic adjustment, being able to see the sail of the solar ship when purchasing is a requirement, so I'm glad to see they have fixed this oversight. Fixed a small number of cases where items received from dismantling products or opening other items would be placed into the wrong inventory. I had this happen a few times and even had the items disappear. With the note's wording, it is possible it was sent to the inventory of an exocraft or something, maybe one I hadn't even unlocked at that point. The default craft amount for creature pellets has been increased, allowing for more pellets to be crafted for the same cost. This is a great change. 60 carbon now crafts 5 pellets instead of 1. Using the nutrient processor to craft them is still superior, giving a 1:1 ratio, but 12 really isn't that bad for general use. Fixed a rare issue that could prevent interactions with some objects during specific network conditions. Fixed a rare issue that could prevent atmospheric frigate flybys on planets with high mountains. Fixed a UI issue that could cause the ship's upgrade screen to automatically close after installing a new cargo slot, even if the player could afford to purchase additional slots. This was just infuriating. The system essentially classed the ships as being fully upgraded if you've maxed the main and technology inventories, and so kicked you out of the menu regardless of how many cargo you had. Going through the menu 39 or so times for a hauler is pretty frustrating. There are some other fixes that I don't think are worth reading out individually, so here are 4 fairly vague and general fixes, and here are a bunch more that are rare and or specific that likely didn't affect most people. Another thing I wanted to mention was a bit of a PSA. It does seem now that this issue is harmless, which is that upon death during the expedition, your saves appear to be duplicated in the save select menu, though it now appears that this fixes itself later on. Regardless, I still think it is exceptionally important for you to back up your save files regularly. At the very minimum, always make a backup before playing a new update. It can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but it may save you from a rare but possible save corruption down the line. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. If you found this video informative, please do hit the like button and leave some kind of comment related to this new update. Lots of videos coming, epic stream on Sunday. Have an amazing day.